Hello and good afternoon to our webinar today. My name is Klaus Mochalski. I'm the CEO and founder of Rhebo. A brief introduction on my person. I have a background in computer science, so I have a pretty technical understanding of our solution. I also spend a lot of time with our customers, so I'll explain in this session a little bit on specific customer experience that we've seen when talking to customers from the field of from the energy sector. A few organizational words. I'll start briefly with the presentation, with the webinar. And in the webinar tool, there is a question section, and feel free to ask any questions throughout the webinar as they come to your mind. And then I'll get to the questions section at the end of the webinar and go through and answer all of them. So feel free to use this tool, and otherwise I'd now jump right in. So today's topic is substation level monitoring, or how to detect cyber attacks at all layers at an early stage. If we're talking about substations, we're talking about substations that you find in power grid, in energy distribution and transport networks. And substations are usually transformer stations, but with alternative energy production, there are more and more different types of substations that you find in today's networks. Let me start with a brief introduction of Rhebo. Rhebo was started as a company in 2014 in Leipzig. Our team has a strong background in network communication and in cybersecurity. Many participants, many people from our team have worked in cybersecurity before, particularly building next generation firewalls. This is the cybersecurity knowledge we brought into the company, and then we started off developing pure play solutions to protect industrial or OT operational technology environments. Most of our sales effort was focused on the German-speaking countries, so Germany, Austria, Switzerland over the past years, but we are now expanding our reach across Europe and also neighboring regions. If we look just at Germany, today with our monitoring solution, Rhebo Industrial Protector, we are protecting about 33% of the German power grid. Overall, we have over 40,000 installations worldwide, meaning more than 40,000 systems deployed in the field, running actively, running our OT monitoring software. Rhebo is now a Landesgier company. Rhebo was acquired in last month by Swiss company Landesgier. Landesgier is active in the field of smart metering, so they provide smart meter infrastructure to their customers. And there will be a cooperation where we help Landesgier protect the smart meter infrastructure of their customers. But already today we have a strong overlap in the companies we're approaching, and so we are already working together closely in different regions across Europe. So a few words about our solution before I get into the challenge of securing substations and transformer stations. So why do you need OT monitoring and anomaly detection systems? So most customers immediately think about cybersecurity, and cybersecurity is a key driver for deploying OT monitoring and anomaly detection solutions, but it shouldn't be the only one. Because let's be honest, a cybersecurity solution never earns any money. It's the insurance policy to protect your important assets in case something goes wrong. On the other hand, there are also things that can go wrong which have nothing to do with cyber attacks. So there can be technical problems, there can be broken network connections, there can be misconfigurations, all sort of things. So basically technical problems that happen during day-to-day operations of your systems and infrastructures. And both cyber attacks and these kind of technical glitches at the end have the potential of bringing down your infrastructure. And talking in terms of an energy company, create a blackout event. And that's what we are trying to avoid with our solution. So at the end, We're not selling cybersecurity to our customers, but we are selling increased availability and productivity of their systems. Customers who are using our anomaly detection system gain three main benefits from our solution, and they gain them in this order. So the first one is always the near immediate visibility of the entire network down to the individual asset. Asset meaning systems, software communicating to control your entire infrastructure. And this seems obvious, but with all the customers where we deploy for the first time, we always see a certain mismatch between what we are observing in the real world and what's in the customer's documentation. So far we have never seen a 100% accurate documentation of all the assets. So asset management is still a pretty, I'd say, immature field in these OT environments, and we help by asset discovery functions, and that's always the first step, because you cannot really protect what you don't know. In the second step, if we have established knowledge about the entire infrastructure, so what systems we have, how they communicate, then we're constantly looking for anomalies that may point out at the potential cyber attack, espionage, or malware infection. And last but not least, as I said at the beginning, we also monitor for any technical errors which we observe and which we also track with the anomaly detection, because also technical errors are a network communications anomaly. If you see dropped packets, misformed packets on a certain network connection, they are anomalies. And just as a cyber attack is raised as an anomaly notification, the same happens with these technical errors and misconfigurations. So our system, the Rhebo Industrial Protector, is a passive monitoring system which constantly monitors the communication in an infrastructure, which learns how communication looks like during normal operation, and then it does a constant comparison of any new communication against this established and learned baseline. And if there's any deviation, any changes in communication behavior, it's raised as an anomaly, and then the system provides help in analyzing what the specific incident is and helps with remediation of this specific incident. So now let's look at a modern power grid. So we all know that power grids have evolved quite a bit over the past years, and this is a journey which still hasn't stopped. So you have your regular DSO and TSO, so distribution system operators, transmission system operators, who control the major parts of the power grid. But they have to live with more and more decentralized resources, like decentralized wind farms and PV systems. You have your regular substations, so transformer stations. You have industrial customers consuming a lot of energy. You may have distributed energy systems, so battery storage systems deployed at your customers' households. And all of these, they have to be managed. And they have to be managed with network, with grid stability in mind. And so the immediate reaction would always be, if we look at the right place to deploy this type of monitoring, you would always pick a central location. So if you go to the control systems, which are run by the DSO and the TSOs, you can basically monitor from the central location, and it gives you pretty complete visibility of your entire power grid. And this is what all of our customers do. In an initial step, they always deploy central monitoring. This means that for our Rhebo Industrial Protector product, they deploy something we call a controller, which is a central system, a server system, and they deploy it and they tap into the communication which goes to and from the central control system. This is where you see all the communication which goes out to your field systems, to your substations, and it's coming back. And so with very little installation effort, it gives you, let's say, a 60 to 80% complete picture of what's going on in your entire infrastructure. The system comes with a web console where you see all the events which it generates, where you see an overview of all the communicating assets, including a map type of overview of your infrastructure. And importantly, the system also has interfaces where you can integrate with northbound post-processing systems. And these systems can be control systems themselves. So we can integrate into an alerting system with your established control system via standards interfaces. We can also interface with standard IT security tools like security information and event management systems, where we also have a number of standardized interfaces which you may have in your IT department, but maybe not so in your OT department. So this is where we see rather slow but steady development to consolidate these type of monitoring systems so that they not only have visibility on either side of the fence, so to say, the IT side and the OT side, but that you can really consolidate and aggregate the information from the IT and OT systems. And on top of this, our system provides open interfaces where you can basically connect to pretty much any post-processing system using standard interfaces like syslog, SNMP, or an REST API, which gives you access to basically all the data that our system produces. So much so good. So as I said, this gives you about 60 to 80% visibility of any communication going on to control your power grid. But this is not enough. This is not enough because it does not catch any activity in a decentralized system. So let's just assume there is a physical break-in at one of your substations. So a physical break-in which goes undetected by physical security. This could also something which happens at your wind farm, and there it's usually much easier than a break-in than in a substation, because usually wind farms are not as well protected. So you can simply physically break in, connect a laptop computer to an unprotected local switch, and this is rather common, so more the norm and not the exception. And then you can basically, as an attacker, you can prepare your attack from an attacker's perspective, rather secure location. And this goes undetected as long as there's no attack communication from the substation to the central system. But it's important to detect these activities early on, because once you detect it at your central location, the real attack may already be underway, and then it may be too late to stop it before it generates it causes any havoc in your infrastructure. I want to provide one real-world example. So we've seen a few examples of substations with stability issues, and this is an example of a malware infection in a transformer station. What I'm showing you are screenshots from our systems, operational at one of our power grid customers. And what we see here is a list of anomalies, how the customers would usually see it. Of course, we have anonymized IP addresses and host names. So what the customer detected here, and you can see there is what we call inbox for anomaly notifications. And this works similar to an email system. This inbox should be empty in a newly established system. And if new anomalies happen over time, they occur listed as textual log messages in this notifications inbox. So we can see that we have 14 of these notifications here, and there's one which caught the eye of the operator. It's marked as critical in red, and it has a risk score of 8.9 out of 10, so pretty high. And as you can see, it's a so-called TCP SYN address scan from a known IP address. So it's a legitimate IP address, an IP address which is known and which is a valid asset in this infrastructure, but it's starting an address scan. And this could be a maintenance operation, so an IT administrator scanning the network for open ports, for instance. But what happened here is that the IT department looked at the IP address, identified a maintenance laptop machine. This one was operational at a local substation, and they immediately contacted the operator, the maintenance worker of this laptop, and took it offline immediately and brought it into the lab for further inspection. And what our system also detected is something. So this is a snapshot from one of the network security dashboards, and in the middle you can see this is a pie chart of detected vulnerabilities by severity level. So there's only one, so it's not really a pie chart in this case, but there was one vulnerability was detected here, and this was a vulnerable and outdated Windows operating system. And it was not vulnerable and outdated because of negligence, but because it was running a programming interface for a specific vendor's PLCs, which could not run on modern patched operating systems. So it had to run an outdated Windows operating system. And this is actually something which is quite common in these kind of environments. And when they brought this in for inspection, they ran a malware scanner, and surely enough, they detected a malware, a standard internet malware running on this machine. And apparently, the owner of the laptop had used the laptop somewhere with an internet connection. This was not supposed to happen, because these maintenance laptops are usually not allowed in public networks where they are exposed to the internet. But for some reason, this malware had found its way into this machine. It turned out that it was an uncritical, rather old malware, which was not targeting any industrial control systems. So it wasn't really a problem, but of course it was scanning the network for other possibilities to infect additional systems. And it clearly shows that an anomaly detection system catches not only an established infection, but also the initial scanning attempts of any malware or of any cyber attack for that purpose. So let's go back to our image. So we see the substation here, and this substation caused this problem. And this is a clear example of what can happen if you don't have visibility into what's going on in your decentralized assets. So not only substations, but also wind farms, PV systems, and the energy storage systems, or even conventional power plants. But they are an infrastructure in itself, and we have a number of customers using our systems to monitor and protect their power generation systems. So the next step is only logical. We've started with central monitoring, using our controller at a central location to monitor all the main links to and from the central control system. Now we add decentralized data collection points, which we call sensors. And on the left-hand side, you see that these are small, ruggedized DIN rail sensors, industrial PCs, which you can deploy in the field in rough environments into your substations. There, they monitor all the local communication, and if there's anything happening out of the ordinary, they will report it as anomalies to the central controller. So they need to have a network connectivity to the central controller, and then they would report back alert messages via the web console or via the northbound alerting and anomaly notification interfaces. And in a common installation, you have one of these controllers operating a certain number of sensors, and this can be 5 to 10 sensors, but this can also be 1,000 or even 1 million sensors, depending on the specific application. So if we look at a large operator of a power grid, there may be 500 substations in the field, and if you identify that 100 out of these 500 substations are high-risk substations, very mission critical for providing reliable service, power service, then you would deploy 100 of these sensors in the field. So luckily, you don't have to install hardware in all of the cases, because our software, our sensor software, also runs on the leading edge devices, gateway systems of different vendors. So you don't have to install our own hardware, but if you have hardware by any of these vendors installed, then it becomes as easy as a software rollout. So we can easily, and you see it in this chart here on the right-hand side, you can easily put our software onto these existing systems, and then we do monitoring as a software function. And this is also how we scale already today to tens and potentially hundreds of thousands of systems which can run anomaly detection, decentralized, reporting into a central system. So the largest installation we have today is an installation of about 35,000 batteries, where each battery, lithium-based battery, runs anomaly detection on the embedded controller and reports any undesired, any unusual activity, any communication attempts which don't look like usual communication to a central cloud-based platform. Talking of cloud-based platform, for most of our power grid operators, actually for all of our power grid operators, the data all resides into our controller on premise at the customer. So it doesn't leave the domain of the customer. So it's not hosted in the cloud, but it's entirely controlled on our local system. So what this gives you, if you expand your central monitoring to the decentralized monitoring of the substations, it gives you full visibility of the entire grid. And you can really be sure that no matter where an attacker starts an attack, you will detect it very early on, basically in real time, when the first steps in reconnaissance happen in your network. And this is not only true for known attacks. Anomaly detection is different different from classic malware and virus scanners, that it does not only detect known malware, but it also detects new malware. So a zero-day attack would always be detected by anomaly detection, because no matter what an attacker is doing, it will always generate different looking, out of the ordinary looking communication on the network, and this will show up as an anomaly in these systems. When we start at customers, at new customers, or also at customers increasing their footprint from central monitoring to add decentralized monitoring, we always start with an analysis. We call this Rhebo Industry 4.0 Stability and Security Audit. It's basically a measurement analysis where we deploy our system in the infrastructure, and then we let it collect data for 2 weeks. These 2 weeks are selected so that the system can be effectively trained, and so that it can learn how communication looks like in this specific environment. Then after 2 weeks, we take the entire data and we run a full analysis. Because we are usually in a brownfield situation, we have an unknown status quo. Nobody can tell us for sure that a system we are deploying at is not already compromised. So we have to do a full analysis. We generate a written report on our analysis, and this is a report of usually 30 pages, sometimes a little shorter, quite often longer, because we have more findings. And in the first part, we describe the infrastructure, including all the assets that are present in this infrastructure. And this already holds the first surprises, because we always find certain nodes and systems which are unknown to the infrastructure operator, or which are communicating in a way which is which shouldn't be. The second part is a list of findings of unusual communication activities. So this could be like a dormant malware, but this could also be services being active which are not strictly required, so they should be disabled to reduce the attack surface. And there are many more different types of incidents that we usually find. We have never then done any of these audits with customers where we did not find at least 10 of these issues. After this audit, the system is fully trained and can be seamlessly taken over in regular operation. So our Rhebo Industrial Protector then has an established baseline. It reports only a very low amount of new notifications. Basically, anytime something new, which has not happened in the past 2 weeks, happens. And in these kind of infrastructures, this is quite a rare event, even after only 2 weeks. We offer this as a bundle, which we call Rhebo Managed Protection, which comes together with an operational service support run by our analysts and experts. And this is really to help customers during day-to-day operation. And we have, right now, we have 3 levels of the service. The lower 2 levels are reactive tiers, where a customer can report incidents, and based on the defined SLA, the service level agreement, we come back to the customer with an analysis and also helping coordinate any remediation actions. The top level, the top tier of the service is a service where we monitor our system for anomalies and where we look for suspicious activities, and we get in touch and call the customer to sort out what's happening. You can never operate such a system entirely remotely, so there always needs to be a person on the ground so that we can find out if what we are seeing, for instance, a manipulation at a certain device in a substation, which could be a regular firmware update, to find out if this is something, if this is a supported action or if this is something which is suspicious. So there always needs to be someone with local access, but many of the service can be offered from a remote location. So much as a brief introduction, and now my question to you: who can reliably answer this question? And for those of you who can't, I invite you to get in touch, and we can certainly do our lean audit, including the report, and then we usually spend half a day in a workshop to discuss the findings of this report. And now I invite you to ask any of your questions that you still may have. So I'm seeing the first question here. The first question is about, so how do you solve the issue with false positives? That's a good question, which we get rather regularly. So many of our customers are worried that our system generates a high level of noise. Noise meaning it raises alerts which are not really alerts. So we are all aware of the problem of alert fatigue. So if you get too many alerts per day, you just turn them off and you don't pay attention anymore. First of all, if I get this question, I usually say that our system does not generate any false positives, because anything it reports is really a deviation from behavior it has seen yesterday. And any deviation in such a critical infrastructure is noteworthy, because we don't have computers being turned on and off, laptop computers, guest computers coming in and leaving all the time, but we have a rather stable environment. So there aren't really any false positives. What there may be is that there are anomalies being raised, which are raised by regular operations, like by a maintenance effort, for instance, by updating a firmware version of a certain PLC. But then again, you have to ask yourself, wouldn't you want to be alerted of such an event? Because you never know if this maintenance worker is reliable, or there could be errors happening, or even worse, this maintenance worker could be bribed by an external party to install a malware infected update to a certain PLC. So our system basically provides full visibility on any of these activities happening across your infrastructure. So we are pretty confident that our system does not produce any of these false positives. So if there are not more questions, it doesn't look like it. I again would invite you to get in touch if you have any more questions. Also, if you're interested in running our audit in your infrastructure to get an idea of what your security posture is. And otherwise, thank you very much for joining this webinar. And you can go to our website, download material, and we're always looking forward to hearing back from you. Thank you.